These has the names of all the soldiers, Union soldiers, African American Union soldiers. Up here, it's sort of done in that style of the Vietnam War Memorial, so you can actually see these names. And if you knew the regiment of the person that you're looking for, you can find that name. This was put here in about early 90s. Frank Smith, who runs the African American Civil War Museum, member during the time, and he put this in this area because he wanted to bring people back to this area. People had not been coming down here because when they built the metro, really nowhere to, you couldn't get down here. But once they built it here, they was like, well, why not put a memorial or monument right here to bring people into the city so they can see more than just the National Mall. Most people come to D.C. and they don't get a chance to see the other side of D.C. To me, there's two sides of D.C. There's this touristy malls and the monuments and memorials. And there's also a different side of D.C., sort of native D.C., people that have been here a while, the neighborhood. And this sort of brings you into this particular neighborhood. So we lobbied to get this here, put here. So this was put here in the mid-90s, soon after the had some really good public schools, so there was a natural progression to go to school here in DC and then eventually to Howard University. It became very prestigious because they wanted to bring the best and the brightest to Howard University, so any African American educator that was out there, or lawyer, or doctor, they wanted them to come here to teach. That's what they got. People like Charles Hamilton Houston, Dr. Charles Drew, Thurgood Marshall, those kind of people went to Howard University and they lived around in this area. So this was sort of this educated, well-to-do class of African Americans that were around in this area. Howard University Hospital is, I don't know if you could see it when we were walking down U Street, but in the background it sits there. There used to be a Civil War hospital. It eventually became Howard University Hospital. This whole area was sort of a Civil War campsite. And I think it's probably why it's predominantly African American, because this is where African Americans came when they fled the South and for their freedom. They settled around in this particular area, which is now called Shaw. So, oh, one more thing. This building here, this building was built by the Prince Hall Freemasons. You can see the little Masonic symbol on the corner right there. This used to be a place where the fraternity met, but this was also another social area or a social place where people could come and meet. If you're not familiar with the Masons, the Prince Hall Freemasons are the African American sort of line Masons. Like I said, I did this elective called Founding Fathers of Freemasons. People all this fraternity. Was there racism? Yes, there was racism. And the reason why you have what we call Prince Hall Freemasons is because a guy by the name of Prince Hall, before the Revolution, 1775, he wanted to be part of a Freemason lodge in Massachusetts. They wouldn't allow him because he was black. So he petitioned a lodge over in Europe, and they granted him Freemason status. Eventually, he wanted to be sort of part of the mainstream, but he didn't get any help from the Massachusetts lodges or the lodges in Europe. So he decided that, well, I'm gonna do my own thing, and he decided to start sort of a separate line called Prince Hall Freemasons. Do the same thing as the mainstream Freemasons, but they were Prince Hall. Now, the Masonic fraternity is more inclusive. I think just like in anything, when we're talking about colleges, you had historically black institutions like Howard and Morehouse and Lincoln, Spelman, but because they couldn't get in, because black people couldn't go to predominantly white colleges or universities. Now, African Americans can attend any colleges they want to do, but you still have historically black institutions. Same thing with Masonic fraternity. You have Prince Hall Freemasons that sort of established its own history to itself. improving their buildings. Just another distribution. So this was my spiel about U Street in the area. Now we can make our way over to the museum where we'll talk a little bit more about African Americans and the Civil War.